Welcome to Things That I Want, but I can't own yet. Now in this segment, we're going to talk about things that I really want to get, but for some reason or another, I simply can't own them. Now, there's a lot of things I want in life, and I'm sure most of the things I'm going to talk about are going to be very ambitious in some cases, but you know, I like to dream, I'm a believer, and I'd like to figure out that maybe with some luck and ambition, I'll get these items one way or another. Even if they're broken, I'll still get them. But anyway guys, there are 4 items to talk about, so let's just get to it. So the first item I really want is the Sega Mega Drive, or as you guys would call it in the US, the Sega Genesis. Don't forget, Sega does what Nintendo don't. We never got that in the UK, from what I've been hearing. That kind of sucks, because the UK would benefit from such marketing expertise and, you know, tons of tood, as they say in the US. Well, maybe that's just me, but anyway, point is, I really want the Sega Mega Drive. I don't know what to say other than my love for retro items and gaming has blossomed in the past few years. You guys have seen that I've got retro headphones, the PlayStation 2, and so on and so forth, and I've had Game Boys and whatever, but I've never had a Sega system, and along with the Dreamcast and the Sega Saturn, I really want the Mega Drive. So why do I want the Mega Drive? Well, there's lots and lots of games for it, it's got a great legacy, you can get one fairly cheap, and I really want the original version. Not to mention the games on there are more my kind of taste, so the more mature kind of games like sports games, action games, adventure games, fighting games. Something that, while Nintendo obviously had, Sega promoted that much more. Not to mention we have the Sega CD, which I do want in the future, but that's another video for another time. Anyway, with the Mega Drive as well, I just think it looks really cool. I mean, okay, the subsequent revisions don't look cool. The Mega Drive 2 and Mega Drive 3, I guess, look awful, but the first one, the first Mega Drive, looks superb, and it also has a headphone jack and all kinds of goodies that the later revisions cut out, such as that headphone jack, which I do want. But I think, to me, the reason why I want it so much is because I've been looking at a lot of different videos regarding the Mega Drive and people's histories and memories with it, and the more I hear about their memories and history with it, along with like history about the company and the history of the console, I just want one. It appeals to me, and I think it'd be cool to have one in my house and say, guess what? I got the Mega Drive from the 1980s, 1990s, you little sucker. I don't know why I tried to put an American accent there for, that's not where I come from. It's really hard to explain why I want one, as I never grew up with a Mega Drive or a Sega system, but I just want one. It looks cool, there's a lot of great games for it, and as I say, compared to the Super Nintendo, you can get the Mega Drive and its games, for the most part, for a cheaper price. So, with all this praise and with all this affordability throwing on to the console, why can't I get one? It's the price, simple, you know. Okay, yes, on eBay you can find these things for about £30 to £40, and to be fair, compared to the Super Nintendo, it's actually quite affordable. It's a similar price point to the PS2, which you can buy for about, I don't know, £20 to £30, it's so cheap. But right now, I simply can't afford that asking price, and what's worse is, even if I could afford the asking price, I would then have to go and get some games. Now, for the most part, the games are between 10 to as much as you want money out the window, but even then I have to build up a library of games, so even if I could buy the system now, I'd be stuck with one game for a very long time until I could subsequently buy more and more games later on. So for curiosity's sake, and for the history and the fact that there's some great games on the Mega Drive, and of course its subsequent CD add-on, which I will try and get later on as well, I think it'll be justifying the price when I do get one. And I'm hoping to try and get one of these consoles by about November to October, so not too long to wait, but I've got to watch my money, so watch the space, because maybe in the future I'll even do an unboxing if I get one in a box, and a nice little journey to show you why the Mega Drive was worth getting. Now let's move on to the second item, the Sennheiser HD 414. Now, you guys know, as I said before, I love my retro headphones. I've got the Sennheiser HD40, the HD410, the HD424, the HD482, the HD, or what was it called, the HD455 I think it was, and much more. I am a huge fan of the old Sennheiser sound, and I love that old Sennheiser line. I think they just look better than the current stuff for the most part. However, to top it all off, the ultimate in retro for Sennheiser is their first ever headphone, the HD414. Yep, it was their first headphone released to the market. It was the first open-air headphone ever made, and it cemented history when it went on sale in 1968. It became subsequently the best-selling headphone of all time, selling over 10 million units. Yep, a record that still stands today. Sennheiser HD414 to me is a piece of history in Sennheiser's work, which I just have to own. I really want the 414. There are some problems though. Obviously with the 414, it lasted from 1968 up until the last release of it, which was the 50th anniversary version, released in 1995. So there are lots and lots of models of the HD414. So in terms of which headphone in that category to get, as you can imagine, lasting for so long, there are so many different versions. You have the original grey version, then the 70s black version, which is similar to the HD410. Then you have the 414X, which is basically the 414 but supercharged, as I like to call it. Then you have the 414 SL, which stands for super light. Then you have the anniversary version released in 1995, the last of them. And there are so many more models that I can't even fathom thinking would exist that I don't even know about. Those are just some of the versions that exist. I really want this thing for its history, but also I imagine that the headphone will sound pretty good. Not as good as the 410 or whatnot, but good enough to be in my collection. And of course, with it being so light and so comfortable with those huge yellow ear pads, I really want one. So what's stopping me from having one? Well, not only price, but the fact is they're getting more rare all the time. Now, when I first started looking for these in 2016, they were all over the place, but as of now in 2017, even though they do come on infrequently, they always come at a high price, and even when you do find one quite cheap, it's always on a bid. And because the headphones are so sought after, the prices always balloon to proportions that I simply can't afford. So finding one is tough enough. Finding one for cheap is even tougher, and when I do find one that's cheap, they're either gone before I can buy it, or the prices balloon to the point where I have to go, I'm sorry man, I can't afford that headphone. I'm going to have to skip out. Oh, the terror. I will try and get one of these, I hope soon. I'm aiming to get one of these by next year, and if I can get one of these by next year in good condition, I think my life will turn into a reality. Even though it is a reality, but that's beside the point. Speaking of headphones, you know how I keep saying I love vintage headphones and I always badger about it everywhere? Well, the thing is, I love my share of modern headphones, and one of them is Beyerdynamics kind of stuff. Now, I really want the DT990 Premium. Why the Premium? Because it looks better than the Pro and it's more expensive, so I feel more satisfied in buying it for more money. But no, that's not why. The reason why I want the Beyerdynamic DT990 is I like the promise of great sound quality that people still use in studios today, a relaxing session with music due to the increased bass compared to the DT880, and because it's the premium model, it's even more comfortable than the DT990 Pro, which, you know, are still good though. Other than being more comfortable, supposedly the Pro and Premium versions are basically the same, with the Premium being more comfortable, which is what I want. As for the ohms, because you can have this headphone in different ohms, there's I believe 32, 250, please correct me if I'm wrong, and 600 ohms. If I had to choose which one to go for, I'd go for the 250. It's a nice combination of not as hard to drive as 600, and I could still play it on, say, an iPod or my computer at decent volume. I could do the same technically with the 600, and I do have an amp to drive things like that, but it's a cumbersome setup, so I'll try and avoid that as much as I possibly could. I also like the fact you have a screw-on 6.3 plug as well, which is so handy for plugging that into my amp as well, whereas I'd have to buy adapters for all my other headphones besides the vintage stuff, although the HD40 is the exception for that one, but I digress. Anyway, I like the promise of the better bass, the open back sound that I'm used to loving on my vintage headphones, the increased treble, and of course being a modern headphone, I expect better sound reproduction as well. I could probably take them anywhere due to the pouch, and like the Sennheisers, these Beyerdynamics are so tough and well built they could last me for eons, much like the vintage headphones. So why can't I buy it? This one's simple, it's just price. Even though these headphones are apparently discontinued, they cost a fortune. Okay, they don't cost a fortune, but they do cost over £100 new on eBay, and various versions cost between £100 to £170. So even though they've stopped being made new, you can still find them for new prices, and Beyerdynamic have this tendency to not cost cheap like Sennheiser for some reason. That's a good and bad thing, but I hope one day I can get the DT990. If however I find the DT880 premium for cheaper, I may go for that instead, but who knows, this is a gamble really. Hopefully one or the other will be costing cheaper in 2018 when I do attempt to try and get these headphones, so fingers crossed. And the final project to talk about today will be the Panasonic GH5. Now, this camera was released this year in April or May of 2017, and it's a beast of a camera. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to undermine my current best camera, the Sony RX10 II. I love that camera to bits, I love what it can do. I am glad that I bought it 2 years ago when I had the chance to buy a brand new camera in 2015. But the GH5 has it trumped in every single way. So it's a bit chunkier from what I've seen, but apparently it doesn't weigh that much more, which is fantastic. It's got a bigger sensor, the Micro Four Thirds, as opposed to the 1-inch sensor found in the RX10 II, even though it's stacked. We also have 4K at 60 frames per second, so we can finally 4K slow motion, finally! Not to mention, it can do it at 400 megabits per second, which is absurd. My Sony can only do the same sort of thing at 30 frames per second at 100 megabits per second, which is still good, but damn, that's 3 times the megabits or something. I don't know. Point is, it's much higher data rate. It's absurd, and I want it. And that leads on to the why can't I buy it? There's 2 reasons. The price, as I've just stated, between £1,600 to £2,000+, and that's not factoring in, you know, lenses and whatnot, which is already annoying. The 100 quid for the Vlog, which really pisses me off. That means I have to use Cinelog D, which gets the job done in color grading, but it's just not as good as the S-Log. But the other problem is I bought the Sony RX10 II, so I've already got a capable 4K camera with color grading, and even now with the GoPro here, you know, I'm still getting pretty good results as well, despite not having a big sensor and 4K. I'm using 2.7K. But my point is clear here, folks. I don't really need to upgrade the camera for quite a while longer, and what's really sad about that is when I finally do get the money to get a GH5, the GH6 might come out, and therefore renders the GH5 basically useless to me, and it'd make it irrelevant. So I might as well just upgrade to the GH6 whenever it comes out. But who knows, maybe I'll give in and buy the GH5. So we'll have to wait and see where life takes me. But guys, that was today's debut episode of things that I want but can't own yet. Let me know in the comments below what kind of things you would love to own in the future but you can't own just yet. If you like this video, give it a like, and of course, if you love this content and you want more from AffroVlogs, and especially from this section of the channel, please consider subscribing to the channel. But guys, until my next video, this has been things that I want but can't own yet. Goodbye!